something felt wrong the moment fans heard the news. A show that had grown into a comfort, a routine, a loyal companion suddenly stopped in its tracks. No warning. No farewell episode. Just a wave of confusion and silence. And then, out of nowhere, John Reardon finally spoke. His words didn't just explain the end of Season 9, they reopened old emotions and answered questions fans had been holding onto for months. What he revealed was not simple, not dramatic for the sake of drama, but honest. And it changed the way many people now see the show's ending. Before any talk of cancellation began, Hudson and Rex was more than just a TV series. It had become a familiar part of people's evenings, the kind of show that made the world feel a little lighter. Fans tuned in not only for the crime-solving action, but for the bond between Charlie Hudson and Rex, a bond that felt warm, loyal, and dependable. The show wasn't built on flashy twists or loud storytelling. It thrived because it made viewers feel something real. It reminded them that doing the right thing still mattered, and that sometimes your best partner doesn't have to speak a single word. As the seasons continued, the characters grew deeper, their relationships stronger, and the stories more heartfelt. People didn't just watch the show. They carried it with them. Families gathered for it. Dog lovers adored it. And many found comfort in its simple, steady rhythm, something rare in television today. By the time Season 8 ended, fans were already imagining what Season 9 would bring. Would Charlie face a new personal challenge? Would Rex's skills be tested in unexpected ways? Would the team encounter a case that pushed them further than ever before? Behind the scenes, the cast and crew were proud of the world they had created. They knew they had built something special, something that didn't rely on shock value but on heart. And for John Reardon, stepping into the role of Charlie Hudson had become more than a job. It was a part of his identity, a role he carried with care and respect. He understood the responsibility of leading a show that meant so much to so many. Yet, even as excitement for Season 9 grew, small hints of uncertainty floated around. Nothing clear, nothing official, just quiet whispers among fans who had been following every update closely. A delay here, a rumor there. But most brushed it aside. After all, a show this loved wouldn't just end without a proper goodbye, right? No one expected that the next announcement would shake the entire fan community. And no one imagined that the person who would finally break the silence and explain the truth would be the one at the heart of it all. John Rearden himself. The announcement landed like a sudden storm on a clear day. Fans were scrolling through their usual updates, expecting casting news, filming dates, or maybe a small teaser about plot ideas for Season 9. Instead, what they found was a single line that stopped everything. The show would not be returning. No countdown. No farewell episode. No gentle warning to prepare the audience. Just a final decision that felt too sharp, too sudden, almost unreal. For many viewers, it didn't make sense. Hudson and Rex wasn't a show people were tired of. It had loyal fans, heartwarming stories, and a simple charm that made it easy to watch. People rewatched episodes on quiet nights. Some even said it helped them through loneliness, anxiety, or tough days. So, hearing that Season 9 was canceled felt like losing a friend without getting a chance to say goodbye. Confusion spread fast. Social media filled with questions. Why now? What happened? Was there a problem behind the scenes? Fans tried to find answers anywhere they could: old interviews, small comments from the cast, hints from the production team. But the truth stayed locked away, and silence only made the disappointment grow. Some believed the network made a quick decision without thinking about the people who loved the show. Others wondered if something personal had happened to one of the cast members. Even people who weren't active online could feel the shift. The cancellation wasn't just news. It became a conversation that followed viewers into their routines. At work, someone would mention how strange it was. At home, families who watched together felt the absence of their weekly tradition. The show had become part of their rhythm, and suddenly that rhythm was broken. What made the situation even more confusing was the lack of explanation. Normally, when a long-running show ends, there is a formal statement or at least a hint about the reasons. But this time, everything felt unfinished, like a puzzle missing a piece. And in that empty space, theories took shape. Some guessed budget issues. Others suspected scheduling problems. A few even believed the creators wanted to leave on a high note. But none of these guesses satisfied the fans because none came from the people involved. Deep down, viewers hoped someone from the cast would step forward and guide them through the confusion. Someone who understood how much the show meant to its audience. Someone who could speak not just with facts, but with understanding. Most people had the same person in mind, John Reardon. After all, he was the heart of the show, the one who carried its emotional weight, the one who shared the screen with Rex in moments that made fans laugh or cry. For weeks, he stayed quiet. Not because he didn't care, but because he knew that whatever he said would carry meaning. He wanted to choose his words carefully. When he finally decided to speak, fans held their breath. They hoped for clarity, maybe closure, or at least honesty about what led to the surprising end of Season 9. And when John finally opened up, he didn't give a simple answer. He didn't blame anyone. Instead, he shared the layers of truth that had been hidden behind the cancellation, the emotional, creative, and practical sides. His explanation wasn't dramatic, but it was sincere. It showed respect for the fans, and it revealed just how much thought had gone into a decision that seemed sudden from the outside. His words didn't erase the disappointment, but they turned confusion into understanding. And for many viewers, that was the first step toward accepting that Hudson and Rex had reached a turning point, one that no one expected, yet one that had a story behind it worth hearing. When John Rearden finally chose to talk, it didn't feel like a public statement or a polished announcement. It felt personal. It felt like someone speaking not as an actor, not as a public figure, but as a human being who understood the weight of the moment. Fans had been waiting for any sign from him, any explanation that could help them make sense of losing a show they had grown attached to. And when he did speak, the tone of his words surprised many. They weren't defensive, they weren't vague, and they weren't meant to soften the blow. Instead, they carried a calm honesty that made people stop and listen. Rearden began by acknowledging the emotional impact the cancellation had on viewers. He didn't pretend it was a small thing or something fans should simply move on from. He recognized the bond people had formed with the show, the comfort it brought, the moments it created, and the connection it sparked between viewers and the characters. To him, Hudson and Rex wasn't just a job. It was a chapter of his life filled with memories, teamwork, and a sense of purpose. And he made it clear that he felt the loss just as deeply as the fans did. What stood out most was how he described the final months before the cancellation. Reardon explained that behind the scenes, the team had been discussing the future of the show long before the public announcement. It wasn't a decision made in a single meeting or caused by a sudden crisis. Instead, it was the result of many conversations about where the story could go next and whether it was possible to continue delivering the same level of quality and heart. Reardon shared that he and the creative team knew the responsibility that came with keeping the show alive. They didn't want to stretch the story thin or force plot lines that felt unnatural just to keep the show running. He also spoke openly about the challenges that come with long-running productions. After years of filming, schedules become more complicated, physical demands increase, and personal lives shift. People grow, priorities change, and the balance between work and life becomes harder to maintain. Reardon discussed this not as an excuse, but as an honest part of the reality that many fans never see. The world of television looks smooth from the outside, but behind the camera, it requires constant energy, commitment, and collaboration. He admitted that there were days when everyone felt the weight of the workload. Yet the team always pushed forward because they believed in the show and in each other. But perhaps the most heartfelt part of his explanation was how he spoke about Rex's canine co-star who became just as beloved as any human character. Reardon talked about the bond between them, a bond not scripted but built through trust, repetition, and genuine affection. He emphasized how demanding the role was for Rex as well, reminding fans that the dog was not just performing tricks, but carrying emotional moments that required patience and training. Reardon expressed deep appreciation for the dedication of the animal trainers and their constant focus on Rex's safety, comfort, and well-being. Then came the part fans weren't expecting. Reardon revealed that all the team explored options for continuing. They eventually reached a point where holding on felt more like resisting change rather than embracing it. He didn't frame it as a failure or a loss, but as a transitional moment when everyone involved realized that the story they had set out to tell had reached its natural resting place. Not a forced ending, but a thoughtful one. His words didn't remove the sadness, but they brought understanding. They revealed the human side of a decision that had once felt sharp and cold. And as people listened, many realized something important. Rearden wasn't just explaining the end of a show. He was honoring it. He was giving it the farewell it didn't get on screen, treating both the fans and the series with the respect they deserved. When Rearden finally reached the part everyone had been waiting for, the real reasons behind the end of Season 9, he didn't hide behind complicated explanations or vague corporate language. Instead, he laid out the truth with a kind of honesty that felt rare. And the truth, as he revealed, wasn't just one thing. It was a mix of many factors, each one shaping the decision in a way fans had never fully understood before. He began with something that struck close to the heart of every longtime viewer: the creative direction of the show. According to Reardon, the writers and producers had always taken pride in delivering stories that felt meaningful, grounded, and respectful to the relationship between Hudson and Rex. But after so many seasons, they reached a point where continuing the same pattern risked weakening the emotional impact the show was known for. Reardon explained that they didn't want the show to fall into predictable routines or forced plot lines that didn't feel true to the characters. They loved the world they built, and because of that love, they wanted to protect it from becoming something lesser than it deserved. Fans began to understand ending on a strong note sometimes requires stopping earlier than expected. Next, Rearden addressed the production realities that often stay hidden behind the scenes. A television show is not just made of scripts and actors, it is a massive network of schedules, contracts, budgets, locations, and teams of people who all need to move together. After so many years of filming, coordinating all of this became harder. Cast members had new opportunities appearing in their lives. Crew members were juggling other commitments. Even simple things like securing filming sites became more challenging as the seasons went on. Reardon made it clear this wasn't anyone's fault. It was just a natural part of running a long, demanding production. The more successful a show becomes, the more complex it is to keep everything aligned perfectly. He then turned to the part many fans had suspected but never confirmed: network decisions. Networks look at many factors: ratings, long-term planning, shifts in audience habits, and upcoming projects. Sometimes even a beloved show gets caught in these larger movements. Rearden explained that the network had been supportive throughout the series, but television is always changing. They had to make strategic choices for their future lineup, and Hudson and Rex became part of that wider picture. Rearden didn't speak with bitterness. Rather, he acknowledged that this is the reality of the industry. A show may hold emotional value for viewers, but networks must make decisions based on many layers fans rarely see. Finally, Rearden opened up about something deeply personal: the human side of continuing a role year after year. He shared that playing Charlie Hudson had been one of the greatest experiences of his career, but with time, he also felt a pull toward new challenges and different creative paths. He didn't speak of burnout or frustration, only growth. He explained that actors evolve, just like the characters they portray. And as much as he cherished Hudson, he sensed a moment approaching where he needed to explore other roles, other worlds, and other parts of himself as an artist. This wasn't a goodbye driven by dissatisfaction. It was a natural shift, a quiet turning point that many people go through in their own lives. Though theirs doesn't play out on television. By the time Reardon finished explaining the many reasons behind the cancellation, Fans realized something important. The end of season 9 wasn't caused by one big problem. It was the result of several truths coming together, truths about storytelling, teamwork, industry changes, and personal growth. It wasn't a dramatic collapse. It was a thoughtful conclusion reached with care. What Rearden offered wasn't just clarity. It was closure. A chance for fans to see that the show didn't end because it failed, but because it had fulfilled its purpose with honesty and heart. And in understanding that, many viewers found comfort in knowing that the story of Hudson and Rex ended with respect from the very people who created it. When the truth finally settled in, when people realized season 9 was truly gone and that Rearden's explanation was the closest thing to a final farewell, something powerful happened across the fan community. At first, the reactions were scattered. Some fans expressed heartbreak, others offered understanding, and many simply felt numb. But as hours turned into days, the conversations grew into something larger, almost like a collective reflection. It wasn't just a reaction to a cancellation. It became a reminder of how deeply a show can fit into the everyday lives of the people watching it. Some fans wrote long messages describing how Hudson and Rex helped them through lonely nights or stressful weeks, giving them a sense of comfort. Others talked about how the bond between Hudson and Rex reminded them of their own pets they loved, lost, or still cherished. Many explained that the show wasn't just entertainment. It was part of their routine, part of their emotional landscape, something that made them feel safe even when the world didn't. These reactions weren't dramatic, they were heartfelt, honest, and incredibly human. And in their sadness, there was also a deep sense of gratitude. But there was another side too. A wave of frustration rose from viewers who felt the show hadn't been given a proper goodbye. They wished for a final episode to bring closure, a last case that wrapped everything in a way worthy of the years they had invested. They wanted the team together one more time, the partnership between Hudson and Rex shining one more time, the warmth of the show glowing one more time. This frustration didn't come from anger, it came from love. People only fight for something when it means something to them. Conversations began to spread between fan groups, turning individual disappointment into shared strength. People exchanged memories, favorite episodes, emotional scenes, and behind-the-scenes stories they remembered from interviews. Slowly, what had started as shock began to feel like a tribute. Fans weren't just reacting. They were honoring the show in their own way. They were writing the farewell that the screen didn't give them, and Rearden's explanation played a huge part in shaping this emotional transition. For many fans, hearing the reasoning directly from him softened the sharp edges of the announcement. His honesty created a bridge between the show and its viewers, something the network's statement alone couldn't do. Fans said they appreciated that he took the time to speak openly, that he treated their feelings seriously, and that he didn't dismiss their disappointment. His sincerity made them realize they weren't ignored. They were seen. Some fans even expressed pride. They admired that the show chose to end with dignity instead of dragging itself beyond its natural life. They recognized the maturity in making a thoughtful choice, both creatively and personally. These viewers believed that ending on a meaningful note protected the legacy of Hudson and Rex and allowed its strongest seasons to shine. Without being overshadowed by weaker ones, the reaction also revealed something important about the community the show created. It wasn't a loud or chaotic fan base. It was gentle, kind, and quietly passionate. These were people who valued warmth, loyalty, and emotional connection, exactly the same qualities that defined the relationship between Hudson and Rex. So when the show ended, the fans carried those values into their response. They didn't just mourn. They remembered. They didn't just complain. They celebrated what the show had given them. In many ways, the fan reaction showed why Hudson and Rex mattered so much. It wasn't about cliffhangers or shock twists or flashy storytelling. It was about the comfort it brought, the friendships it portrayed, and the honesty it carried in every episode. When a community responds with such depth, it proves the show achieved something rare. It reached people in a quiet but powerful way. And as the conversations continued, it became clear that fans weren't only saying goodbye. They were keeping the spirit of the show alive through their memories, their stories, and their hope that someday, in some form, the world of Hudson and Rex might return to the screen.